principles, some examples, and just some overall strategies to make hospitality come alive here, and then also to give you guys the tools to run with it. Just a little bit of background about me. Before I was a seminarian, I was a youth minister for 9 years, and then before that, I went to Ohio State, and my degree is actually in hospitality management, which I used for 0 years. And you should have seen my dad after I got the degree, and I'm going into youth ministry. He's like, "You're doing what?" But at the end of the day, it was kind of a cool thing because I think the church should be the most hospitable place in the world. And so God knew what he was doing in offering that degree, and now my hope is that we get to do it together and kind of take some of those tools that I learned in the field and bring them to the parish. Sound good? Any questions? Okay, good. So, before we get started, I don't know if you guys know this, but every parish has reviews online. Every parish. They have Facebook reviews, Yelp reviews, Google reviews. Every parish has reviews of the parish online. Did anybody know that St. Aloysius has reviews online? Raise a show of hands. Other than Mike. Only Mike. Wow, even Father didn't know for reviews.
I just didn't raise my hand.
Or you didn't want to see them, right? No, actually, they're really good. But I wanted to give you, I looked online before I started this. I wanted to give you a little sample of some reviews that you can find online about St. Alex. These are reviews that you can see online. And I picked the good ones because, you know, you got to get a copy of the booster going in. But most of them are actually really good. But let me just read 3 examples. I love St. Alex because all are welcome. The folks at St. Alex treat us as family. They are my family. The faith community has become family, and I feel their support and kinship always. St. Alex Church offers a welcoming community of parishioners with a dedicated staff and inspirational services. So those are just 3. That's a sample of 3. What would you say of all these 3? And I really didn't handpick these. These are really just kind of a standard 3. What would you say of these 3? What is consistent about these 3 reviews? You can start throwing it out or raise your hand. Yeah?
Positive.
Oh yeah, they're positive. That's great. What else? Yep.
Welcoming.
Welcoming. Yep.
Family.
Family. Yep. What I find interesting about this is none of the reviews have to do with theology, as important as that is, even Mass, as important as that is, sacraments, as important as that is. All of the reviews that I saw, almost without exception, had something to do with belonging and welcoming and hospitality. In other words, people rated their experience and rated if they wanted to come back and tell other people about it based off what seemed like 90 to 95% of the time on solely hospitality. That means this, to put it in another way. If we don't get hospitality right, it doesn't matter how good everything else is because they're not going to even get here in the first place. The bottom line, kind of why it matters, why we should focus on it, is because without it, they can't get to the stuff that makes our mission our mission. I have a friend who is a traveling speaker, like a Catholic speaker, and she was at the airport a few months ago, I think right before COVID, and I was talking to her, and I'm going to read this because it's really small, but this was the conversation she had with somebody at the airport just randomly. So let me read it for you. A young man ordered food after me, and we both stood there waiting. I pulled off my phone out at one point, and a crucifix from my rosary pulled out too, hanging out of my pocket. He saw it and asked if I was Catholic. And she responded, "Yes, very." "Oh," he said back. He looked past me and said, "I used to be Catholic, but I never really felt like I fit." I nodded my head, not sure what to say back, but he continued talking with no prompting. I went to a bunch of different parishes when I moved, but no one even ever asked my name. I always loved going. Where else can a dude stare at stained glass and it's not weird? No one seemed to want me there, so I stopped. At this point, I've said nothing other than yes and very, and this guy's opening up about losing faith because no one asked him his name. Well, I said, "What's your name?" "I'm Joe." "Well, Joe, I'm Katie. I'm very Catholic, and I'd love to see you come back to the church. I want you there." "Yeah, maybe," he replied. We stood quietly for another few minutes, and then both of our orders were ready. As we grabbed the bags, he turned back to me and said, "I know it's my fault I left for something so silly as no one asking me my name. But like, isn't the first thing Jesus would want us to know about each other would be our name? Yeah, Joe, it is. And you're right. The point being, again, it had nothing to do with what the church was offering, Mass-wise, sacramental theology, all that stuff. Nobody just asked what his name was, and he wasn't connected. Like I said before, our lead story is not hospitality. The main point of all that we do is not hospitality and welcoming. It's bigger than that. Jesus and the church and the sacramental life of the church that I love is our lead story. But without good hospitality, they're never going to get to it. Hopefully that breaks our heart a little bit. We could have this treasure, right? And nobody's ever going to discover the treasure because the lid hasn't been opened. There's a model when it comes to getting people to be fully active, engaged disciples and really following the Lord. And we call it the belong, believe, behave model, right? And so in order to believe what we believe and act the way Jesus wants us to act, people have to belong first. Belong is the first step. But isn't it true as a church, do we often flip this? Once you behave like we do and believe what we do, then you can belong. We've reversed this for years, and we wondered why we often have issues. And perhaps one of the reasons we have issues is because it needs to be in right order. That they can belong while they have questions, and while they might be doing things that, we wish they would do other things. They can belong first, and then we can show them what we believe and how amazing it is, and then we can give them steps to live the life that Jesus wants us to live. But belong has to be first. It can't be the other way around. Yeah, question?
Chris, correct me if I'm wrong, some of the big box churches have done an incredible job in this, of hospitality and showmanship or whatever. And yet, as Catholics, I think we tend to believe that we've got the real deal here, and you're going to find it will be fine.
Yeah.
You just got to get here, and it's just interesting how it's kind of reversed. That we don't really feel like we have to sometimes because we're like, it's the real deal. You'll find it.
And can you imagine what would happen if we've got all the tools, right? All the gems in the treasure chest, right? Can you imagine if we did hospitality well and we have all the riches of the faith? I mean, I would imagine that if a church can do hospitality in a very strategic, influential way, I mean, it is the potential is endless, right? Because you're right, those churches, as good as they do with hospitality, they can only go so deep, right? Because of just the lack of a sacramental life. They do certain things really well, but can you imagine if you can do both? Let me put it another way. The megachurches should not have a monopoly on hospitality. That's crazy. That's crazy. That's not what I think the Lord had in store for us as Catholics. We can do both. We can do both. I love being Catholic because it's a very and faith, not an or faith, right? It's not one or the other. It's good hospitality and death. And death. One of my favorite Bible verses, and there's a church that we're going to case study in a little bit. They have this plastered on every office of every staff member. I think they have it on every room of this church. It's everywhere. I mean, I don't know if they got a bulk discount on pictures, but like they're everywhere. It's this verse from Acts 15, and I think this is kind of the direction we're going to go in. St. Paul is speaking. It is my judgment, therefore, that we should not make it difficult for the Gentiles who are turning to God. And the question is, maybe an uncomfortable question, one that you might want to push back on a little bit for me is, where have we made it unnecessarily difficult for people who are turning to God? Now, in some ways, we can't lower our standards or lower the bar. Like, there is good and excellence, right? Where have we made it unnecessarily difficult?
RCIA.
There you go. Or how about this? Acronyms. That people are like, what does that acronym mean? In fact, I don't know if we can do a Catholic program without an acronym. I think in order to be a Catholic program, there has to be an acronym, right? We seem to love them, but that's insider talk, right? Or just the way, maybe, the steps that make it difficult for some people. That's a great question. Where have we made it unnecessarily difficult? So now, This is the most uncomfortable, like I said, there's going to be a little time. This is going to be the most uncomfortable time of the talk. This is where I'm going to give you three examples, and you're going to get a chance to mentally grade your parish and how they're doing in this particular area. So I'm going to put something on there, and then with the people at your table, you guys are going to chat about the letter grade. You can even use pluses and minuses if you want. The letter grade you would give your parish, no offense taken, you don't have to be defensive, or you don't have to be worried about being honest. This is your chance to speak freely on this particular area that maybe your parish is doing on hospitality. I think the point is here, it seems like you guys are doing a great job. But great, we can always take it a step further, right? So this isn't a bash session at all. This is a chance to even go better and deeper and improve even more. Does that make sense? Okay, so a few examples. Ready for these? All right. Example number one, grade your parish. A Catholic family just moved to your area and wants to join your parish. How easy would it be for them to feel connected? Ready, discuss. I would give the church an A. Anybody, any A's? Okay. Any B's? Okay. C's? Ooh, we got a C. Any D's? You can be honest. No D's or F's? Okay. I think that's fair. Next one.
Wait a minute.
Yep.
Why is it that great? What in your discussion did you discover that is missing?
In other words, why aren't they all A's?
Yeah, why aren't they all A's? Why, it's like Julie said, if somebody calls and they want to know where the church is because they're new in town, they used to, before COVID, invite them to come and, give them some pamphlets or something. And then there's some kind of facial recognition, but when people are on vacation, they're coming and going, we don't know who is. And then she brought up a really good example of saying to somebody, I don't recognize you. Are you new here? And then you find out that they've been coming here for 12 years.
Right.
Yeah.
So then you're left in a little hopping around dance, going oops. But there isn't, especially when if you're working with realtor companies and they were buying a house rather than renting an apartment, there might be an initial way to find out, who's moving into your neighborhood. But without anything like that, it's hard to know.
And I think part of it is maybe the average parishioner, tell me if I'm wrong, the average parishioner doesn't really know how to broach the topic with people that they see around them. So it's just easier to what? Not do it, right? So part of it is maybe we haven't all been trained on the easiest and best ways to do it. And when that's the case, if you're anything like me, you just get busy, right? And so it's easier not to do it at all. There's almost not a culture built in. I know a parish that you actually can't register at the parish anymore. They've taken registration out completely. And you have to come to a welcome to the parish, kind of like gathering or party once a month, where you get a tour of the parish, all the staff comes, and then they plug you into like some examples of a ministry that are the best ministries to get plugged into. And their retention rate is shot up through the roof because they made it so you can't just like fill out a card and then you're done. I thought that was really an interesting way to look at it. So in other words, to be more strategic with and intentional with the people that are registered. That's an example. Yeah?
We also used to have our donut hour,
Yeah.
And now with this COVID stuff, we can't even do that because that's how we used to be able to connect with individuals, to find out who was new or who wasn't.
And I even think with that kind of stuff, it would be easy for somebody to come to a donut hour and nobody, if you don't know them, nobody to talk to them unless we have people at a parish that are trained to be in a room to watch for that. So even those kind of things, that assumes people are going to come up to you. But often, we have to be the ones that are coming up to them and giving them what the next steps are. So, yeah.
And this, I hope you all know, I love this church. This is my home. But in 13 years of coming to this church, no one has ever come up to me at donut hour and said, I don't know you, what's your name?
Because they all know you.
Yeah.
And so it's being more than just providing events, right? It's really for us to get, and I think it starts in a small group setting. I don't think you have to have 5,000 parishioners that understand this. I think it starts with a few dozen. Can you imagine at a Donut Sunday, for example, if 20 parishioners were there that were looking out for people that they didn't recognize? Would that be enough? I think 10 might be enough, right? So this is not necessarily that something huge or a lot of people, it's just people understanding kind of this mission, or that I would call it this ministry, right?
We need donor ambassador.
Yeah. You can eat a donut while you do it. The reason I'm continuing to move on is because these points we're going to build on. I'm just trying to get everybody to think a little bit. Does that make sense? Yeah, it's me. So the second one is the same way. A young couple has never been to a Catholic church before, but wants to check out your parish. They're feeling a little empty. They just had kids. They know they might need some religion. They see this church. There's bells going, and they're like, oh, there's a school. I'll check it out. This is the key. What would their first, never been to a Catholic church, what would their first impression be? Chat. Okay, is it intimidation?
Someone that has no familiarity with ritual or anything like this, be intimidated. You wouldn't know what to do.
What's wrong with that?
Especially now you don't have a hymnal or anything. Yep. Follow the guy in front of you.
So yeah, you know, Catholic means universal, right? So we believe the faith is for everybody. If you look at the stats in BG, like 30 to 50% probably would claim to be Catholic. That means there would be 50 to 70% that would not probably know how to enter into that. And so that's a challenge for us on how can we make it universal without changing the beauty of what we believe, right? So that's a great point. What else? Yeah.
I would say honestly, it's I think fairly well, just because you can come and granted not during COVID obviously, but you come on any day and there's going to be the fire or the candle or there's all sorts of things that you can see people chatting before church, chatting after church, and people see that it's more of a community and it's not just you go, you see with us leave, there's nothing there.
You see like a friendliness. I even noticed in my first few weeks here where I was like, these people generally like each other.
Yeah.
That's a good thing, yeah. You don't always go to places that are like that, right? So yeah, I would agree with that, for sure. Yeah.
Mrs. Avery said that their first impression would be that the building is beautiful.
Yes.
Obviously that lends a lot of credibility to like the restoration projects and different stuff like that, because it is a beautiful church. I mean,
We're attracted to beauty, right?
Right,
Humans
right.
are attracted to beauty, absolutely.
So, I mean, I think that's important. Like I said, just because that assigns credibility to like the different infrastructural changes, right, that have happened in the church recently.
And we're going to talk about that in a little bit, but I think that's really important too. Yeah.
I think this is a very, very loving congregation.
Yes.
And I think that it is a very welcoming congregation to one another, but I think we're all shy about approaching somebody that's new.
It's intimidating sometimes, yeah. Especially if it's loving because you have people to talk to that are loving you back. But I don't know if you guys have ever talked to somebody new, especially about faith, and it's not received. It's a two-way street, right? Well, it's not received well, and then that means it's all ministry. It's hard on you because as a youth minister, do you know how many kids rejected me by sharing the faith? I was not batting 500, that's for sure, right? And so, but it was worth it for the ones that we did get, but sometimes you get rejected by asking to, get involved in that kind of stuff. So yeah, I think you're right. Speaking of, this one's near and dear to my heart. A group of high school students just went to a Christian summer camp, like a non-Catholic one, and want to get involved at your parish. what kind of programs are available to them to get involved? Ready, set.
Maybe that's not the best.
I'm sorry for interrupting you guys. Just want to get you on. I want to be here till 10, although I was like the top till 10. Thoughts on this one?
Not our strongest point.
Something to look at.
We could do better.
This seems to be a community where there's a lot of families, so this could be a really good opportunity. I know there's a lot of families around here, so they seem to be in the community. It's about getting them from there to here. Am I right on that? You guys know the community better than I do. But good schools here, people, a lot of families, so it seems like some parishes just don't even have them in the demographic. But you guys seem to have them in the demographic, they're just not in the physical structure. Is that correct? Okay.
We have to brainstorm what draws kids in.
And I can offline and talk to you guys about that one, but look at me, I am not the cool youth minister, like by any stretch, like, so it wasn't my coolness that got him there, but it was remarkable. By the time I left, 600 kids a week at the youth group I was at, and we started with 25. And it was not, again, me. There was a plan in place, the Lord worked, and they will come. They will come. So there is hope in this area. There's hope in this area. Yeah.
If you look at some of the good examples out there, a lot of our Protestant churches have paid youth minister positions. And a Catholic church has to pay this person and have a fund available for them to use, so they're not pulling stuff out of their own pocket all the time, because that can become, for the youth minister, prohibitive. And so if you're not going to fund it, and you're not going to man it, so there's somebody there putting this stuff together, then this is just hot air. You have to, put your money where your mouth is. And then when you do your bulletin, when you have programs, you have a little star right on the front page, has HS on it for high school, and then they look, where's Waldo in the bulletin, and they look for that star to say, okay, this week this is what we're doing. We're having a free pizza and a movie night, and then we're all playing volleyball out here. Whatever. And so that, and part of this is having a youth group, kids who are going to different schools. They're going to Catholic high schools and public schools, and they're being taught at home, etc. So different environments. We're bringing them together so they get to know each other.
Joe Malenfant, who was the youth minister at St. Joe's Mommy, he said that the youth ministry at his parish was absolutely a money maker, actually. They spent a lot of money on it, but when families saw what was happening to their teenagers, the collection specifically of the families of teenagers went up so high, they made, and not that it's about that, but I know a lot of people say, like, we can't afford it, and I totally understand that. But they actually said you earn more money offertory-wise when you invest in youth. And that was certainly true of the parish I was at. Our highest attended mass was our teen mass. So it's not even cost prohibitive sometimes, it's just an initial investment. So that's a great point, yeah.
When you were youth minister, how many people were assisting you, either paid or unpaid?
We had a core team, those were adult volunteers. So we had about 20 high school corps members, those would have been, and then about 30 to 40 middle school ones. But it's interesting, our best middle school ones, half our middle school ones were actually high school students. And those middle schoolers loved them. I would lead a middle school small group, and they'd be like, thanks, Chris, but could Charlie, the high school student, talk? I'm like, great. I'll just step aside. Yep. So it wasn't just adults, because sometimes adults are really busy. And the parish, its scale, it's 15,000 parishioners, but we had 3 full-time youth ministers. But the local parishes around us did not. They were just as big as we were, and they did not. And so we were thought of as crazy for investing in that much. And yet, as a result of it, everything else in the parish was more successful. Isn't it true that families move places and make decisions based off their kids. Why wouldn't they do that at the church level either?
Right.
So, with all of that in mind, I want to just give a few examples in the secular world or the non-Catholic world of people that are doing these principles really well and get us started thinking. And I'm going to share some principles, because right now all we have is issues, right? We have problems. That's on purpose. The wound is there. Now we're going to heal the wound a little bit, and we're going to talk about some solutions to it, okay? Remember, this is just the start of a conversation. This is the start of a conversation. So, these are 3 case studies that we learned of organizations that do hospitality really well, and I guarantee these are principles you can steal from in a church setting. The first is a hotel I've never stayed at because I work for the church, Ritz-Carlton. Ritz-Carlton has a really interesting slogan for their employees. They say, "We are ladies and gentlemen serving ladies and gentlemen." They say that because they elevate their staff to the point where their staff knows they're important, and then they treat their guests important. That's really important when we have hospitality staff or volunteers here, by the way. Another interesting thing, they give all of their employees up to $2,000 to spend on any guest at any time, no questions asked. There is a story of a guest that checked out of one of their hotels, and one of the kids dropped their teddy bear, and the family went away and flew back home. And the employee grabbed the teddy bear, found out where they were from home, flew back home, hand-delivered the teddy bear. Ritz-Carlton paid for it. And here's the deal with that. Will that family ever stay at any other chain ever again? Did that hotel chain make money from that decision? Absolutely. Excellence makes excellence, right? So that's one example, Ritz-Carlton. The second is who I was going to work for had I not been a youth minister. The Walt Disney Company. They have principles. They call their employees cast members because they're always on stage. They're always on stage putting on a show for their guests. So they got a few things. Make eye contact and smile. That's one of their things. You'll notice they do that very well. Greet and welcome each and every guest. I have a friend, we went into Magic Kingdom, and she's a minimum wage employee, right? Not a manager. She looked at my friend Molly and was like, "Welcome, princess. We're so glad that you're here." And my friend Molly started crying. It was embarrassing and awkward, but Molly was so happy, right? They seek out guest contact. They provide for immediate service recovery. I love this. One time I was on a ride and I threw up on the ride. I just had one of those Mickey ice cream bars. And out of nowhere, I swear they came from the ceiling, 3 employees found me. One roped off the area with a smile. The other ushered other guests around. And the third comforted me to deal with that issue. It was over in a flash. It was amazing. Display appropriate body language. If you go there, you'll notice they never point. They use 2 fingers or a whole hand. They will never point. They will use 2 fingers or a whole hand. Preserve the magical guest experience. Thank each and every guest. I don't know if you know this, but the park actually has cameras all over the park. They're not security cameras, actually. Below the park, they have cast members that are watching the cameras. And if there's any sign of unhappiness or congestion in any area, they'll, quote, eliminate the unhappiness by dispatching a mini parade or free ice cream in a zone to make sure that that area is taken care of, which I've gotten before. I was at Space Mountain, and the ride was really congested. And all of a sudden, there somebody came in a cart and offered free ice cream to us, and it was awesome. I forgot about the congestion. Now, I bring this up because I'm not trying to advocate for one particular company, but Six Flags, for example, charges $30 a ticket or $40 a ticket. They've been almost bankrupt for 20 years. Disney charges a crazy amount per ticket. It's like $110. And they're more successful than they've ever been. People seem to be attracted to places that do things with excellence. And they'll invest their time and their resources and their energy into those places as opposed to places that don't do a good job. And I think you can see this in a church setting, right? A church that maybe focuses on things or doesn't care very much, or liturgies aren't planned, or the grounds are not kept. People notice that. And the places that things seem to be done really well, I think people notice that too. So there's a good example of an organization that's doing that well. And the third example I'm going to give you, this is the one that people always balk at the most, but let me just put a little precursor on it. It's from a non-Catholic church. I don't want us to become like this church necessarily. I don't want us to do this intro video, none of that. I love being Catholic. We're not going to become a mega church. But this video, I want you to not necessarily say what I like about it or what I like about this church. I want you to look at the strategic hospitality principles they have so that we can steal them, because all good ideas are what? Stolen. So these are just ways to look for hospitality principles. This would be playing when they start. Again, I don't want to do that because I think there's something really special about the Mass. But you're going to notice some very intentional hospitality principles on it. So let's watch it, and then I want you to look out for what those principles are. It was a church we case studied in Atlanta. I lived there.
Hey there, North Point. My name is Nikki, and I'm an Inside Out volunteer. I love working with high school kids. It's a great ministry, and they keep me young, fresh, and hip. I hope you guys have an awesome Sunday and enjoy our service.
Hi everyone, thanks so much for joining us. We want to take a few minutes to let you know what's going on around here. Well, we've actually designed this place with you in mind, so all of our environments point to one thing, our mission, which is to lead people into a growing relationship with Jesus Christ. Also, if this is your first time here, we have a gift for you. You can pick this up right after the service in the studio located right off the atrium. Do you have an infant or preschooler? If so, you definitely want to check out Wonderland. Every Sunday while you attend the service, your child can enjoy a safe, fun environment designed just for them. In Wonderland, we want every kid to learn that God loves them. For more details, check out our website. If you are a high schooler or the parent of one, you need to hear about The Walk. The Walk is a week-long beach camp that includes everyone's favorites, sun, sand, and surf, all at a great hotel with some of your best friends. But The Walk is more than just a trip to the beach. It's filled with amazing worship led by great worship leaders, relevant teaching that takes on real-life issues personalized through valuable small group time. You do not want to miss The Walk. For more information and to register, just visit the website at insideoutstudents.org. College students, are you looking for a place to connect with other college students? Join us this summer in the attic at Buckhead Church on Monday nights for a free meal, great music, and relevant teaching with other college-age students around the city. Our first meeting is June 6th. Go to thelivingRoomATL.com for more information or check us out on social media. If you have questions about North Point or are wondering about how to get more involved, we have a great next step for you. It's called The Studio. No matter where you are in life, and no matter how many times you've attended North Point, we want to help you take your next best step. So just stop by the studio located off the atrium. One of our guest services volunteers will be ready to assist you. Well, that's it for this week. We'd love for you to connect with us online. If you go to our website, you can find up-to-date information about everything happening around here. You can check out our blog, follow us on Twitter and Instagram, and like our Facebook page. Also, be sure to download our app. You can stay up to date on upcoming events and view past messages. These are great resources we'd love for you to use. We hope you enjoy your experience here with us today. Have a great week, and we'll see you soon.
Okay, hospitality principles that you noticed from just watching that. There's a bunch of them. What'd you see?
You gave me a gift.
Oh yeah, they got a free gift. That's true. It's a message series, yeah. So it could be Father Tom's message or his face on a CD. It's perfect. Excited, yeah. You can tell they were very excited about being there. Yeah. What else?
Eye contact and smile.
Oh yeah, lots of eye contact. Yep. That was a volunteer, right? So it wasn't like a paid staff member. Yep.
My name is.
My name is. Yep. So I think every week they have a new volunteer. I think that's how they do it. What else?
Yeah, I'm glad you are here. Shirts.
Oh yeah,
Saying, but this is
all the volunteers wear the I'm glad you're here. Actually, if you go there, the parking lot's really easy to use, but they have like hundreds of, it seems like, of people that like guide you to a parking spot. And then I counted, before I sat down, I was greeted like 8 times by different volunteers. It was like, I was like, oh my gosh, like, thank you. I mean, it was like, it wasn't like weird, but it was like layered. There were a lot of people that were greeting me. Yes. What else?
That makes
Yeah.
They had a place to go if you had questions.
Yeah, did you notice that? And they said it twice, the beginning and the end. There was a dedicated, what was it called? You guys remember? Studio. Yeah, that was a dedicated place to go if you, what do they call it? Your next step, right? Yeah. Yep.
They call them guests.
Oh yeah.
Technology.
Yeah, they use technology, yep.
And they lured them to the studio with free stuff.
Yeah.
And childcare.
Yes. This would be a community probably a lot like BG. So did you notice that all the ads were, a lot of them were like families, right? Because again, like the people in the pews were adults, but us as adults, like we want our families involved too, right? And so they knew that. They knew that, yeah. Yeah, they did. They did. Which, I mean, amen, right? Yeah, of course. I lured you guys with food, yeah, so. Yeah.
They addressed certain situations by age groups.
Yeah.
Except the elderly.
Yeah. Why do you think they did it? I actually asked that. There's a reason they did it. It's not a bad reason, actually. It's because they had such a high participation rate, they were reaching out to the ones that were the lowest participation rate. That's why. Not because they wanted to discount them out, but because the elderly are the best at RSVPing and coming to things, so they were like, our ads aren't going to target the ones that we're already getting here, they're going to target the ones who would be the hardest to get there. High school students, college students, right? And so they targeted the ones that were the most difficult to get there, not the easiest. That's why.
And that would change everything.
That would change everything, yeah. A lot of production. I don't know how they did it. But, again, we can steal little things from them, right? We don't have to do it all. Yeah, we can steal little things from them. But if you were a first-time guest there, would you kind of know what to do? It would be fairly easy to know what your next step would be, right?
There are a lot of churches, Protestant churches, that have basically a kiosk playing that in a loop, too. Which is great for if you're somebody who is not comfortable being greeted by strangers. You could at least still have a place where you could get the lowdown and kind of take it at your own speed.
And I mean, I was just, and we'll get into these with the principles, but like, people would die for the space you guys have here, this space, because it's kind of built for something like that, right? I mean, you have two entrances, but for now at least, everybody's coming through this. So in theory, or most people are, so in theory, like, you could easily do something in an environment like this, a dedicated space. So yeah. All right, so what I want us to do now is I'm going to give you 10 kind of simple hospitality principles to think about. I'm not a huge note taker, but if this would be like the chance, I would say it would be a good chance to take a note. And these would be things that you guys can start running with after this, okay? So we're going to talk about these. As I list the 10, this is a great chance to interrupt me if you've got a question or if you don't like one, okay? So feel free. I'm going to run through those 10 fairly quickly, but I want you to get them, and then we'll discuss them, okay? Father Tom is going to love this first principle. This first principle is this. Have what I like to call a hospitality champion for each mass or big event, and it cannot be the priest. This is what I mean by that. Any big event you have, every mass you have, is there one person that is dedicated to making sure hospitality is taken care of? You know, we have lectors, and we have musicians, we have really key roles, and ushers, but often ushers, it's logistical, it's not always just hospitality, right? I'm talking, is there a dedicated hospitality person? They're a dedicated hospitality person, so you know to go to them, and not just greeters, I mean all the greeters would even go to this one person, but almost like a hospitality manager, I like to call champion, and they would be the ones that ensure hospitality is going well throughout the entire parish at that one particular event. It can be a staff member or it can be a volunteer, but it needs to be somebody that's got that hospitality blood in them, and they're coordinating the entire group of volunteers that make it happen on that level. Does that make sense? Have a hospitality champion for each mass or big event. Yes?
Your example for the Protestant church showed individuals with like a vest or something.
Yeah.
That would identify them specifically for that role.
Yeah, or a t-shirt would be fine. I know a church, a Catholic church, where all their shirts say are, "We are so glad you're here." And so you walk in and all these people with shirts on and say, "We're just so glad you're here." So before you even say it out loud, they see it on all these shirts. Or it could just be a St. Al's logo. It could be anything like that. But those are really helpful. And here's the other thing. People wear free shirts everywhere else too. So it also provides good promo beyond just that one event, right? So number one, have a hospitality champion for each mass or big event. Number two, use common keywords, phrases, and body language. Why is it important that we have a vocabulary and body language that is consistent across the board at the parish? For two reasons. One, we know we've thought about it. We've thought about it ahead of time. And two, it says we are all on board on a common mission. I'll give you an example. Chick-fil-A, what is their common word or phrase? My pleasure. They always say it. We love it, right? I know a Catholic camp, they always say welcome home. Welcome home is what they say constantly. Those are just things that say, oh, they've thought about this. And this is part of their culture, their DNA. And I'm telling you, as cheesy as my pleasure is every time I hear it, I want to hear it. And when I don't hear it, I get mad. Not that bad because I'm eating chicken, but still a little bad, you know? A little bad. Another example with the body language that they taught us in hospitality school is at 10 feet, always make eye contact with somebody, and at 5 feet, greet them. Anything more than 10 feet, you're like, Brian, how you doing? I mean, you know, it's like, Mike, how you doing? It's just a little too far. 10 feet is always a good level to make eye contact, and 5 feet is a good level to greet. So you'll notice I try to do that. I wasn't out there just because like I like the outside, although I do. It was more to show like that is something that we can easily do. If you've been to Mass here in the last 2 months, I try to hang out there as much as possible to kind of indicate what I'm talking about, that 10 to 5 foot ratio. Does that make sense? Use common keywords, phrases, and body language. I love this one. Focus on the first encounter and the final encounter. If you get the middle wrong, people generally forget. But if you get the first thing that they experience wrong, the whole rest of the experience is often ruined. And if you get the last thing they experience wrong, that's what they remember. So if you can spend resources in anything, I want you to think about the very first thing that they encounter. So for example, if the last thing they encounter is getting cut off in the parking lot, it's probably not going to be a positive experience, right? But if the last thing they encounter is somebody at the door that's saying, thank you so much for being here this week, we'll see you next week, right? That's going to be something they remember. So always in our head, we should be thinking, what's the very first thing they're going to experience and then the last thing? I know churches that when you walk in or when you come into the parking lot, there's a sign that says, welcome home. And then on the outside, like as you drive out, it says, you're now entering the mission field. I thought that's kind of cool. It's like that's the first and the last thing that they think about. So as you're kind of developing a lot of these principles, focus on the first encounter and focus on the final encounter. Principle number 4, follow a process for handling complaints. Complaints are inevitable. They will always happen. And complaints are actually a good thing if they're handled properly. There is a chance to actually make somebody happier depending on how you handle complaints. But often complaints are handled so poorly that it just makes it worse. Have you ever been to a place where you complain about something and the way they handled it actually made you more mad? But have you ever been to a place where the service recovery is so good that has anybody been to the restaurant at Levis Commons called Benchmark before? It's really good, and I barely go because it's really good. It's kind of expensive. But I really like it because one time I was there and I was waiting like 8 minutes for my food. I didn't even notice it was that long. And the chef came out and he's like, it was to go. The chef came out and he said, we're so sorry about your wait. I'm like, oh, like was I waiting? And he's like, here's a gift card and a bottle of wine. And I'm like, if we need to wait longer, like I'm fine with that. I wasn't mad at all. His service recovery was so good, I went back. I went back more often. It's just a gift card. So I mean, it's like one of those things that he made the experience better. He made a negative a positive. So the way I like to teach handling complaints is a very simple 6-step process, 6 steps. The first thing is, if you're a hospitality volunteer and somebody complains to you, the first thing is listen to them the whole way through and don't interrupt the whole way through. Let them say everything that they want to say. Number 1, listen the whole way through. Number 2, repeat back the entire complaint that they just said, and that way they know you were listening. So number 1, listen all the way through. Number 2, repeat back the complaint so they know exactly what you said, that you were listening. And the third, you apologize. Even if you're not wrong, even if you didn't do anything wrong, even if the person's crazy, you apologize because they had a bad experience. They had a bad experience, and that's what you're apologizing for, not who is in the right. Being right is not number 1 in this case. So it's not about who's right and wrong. You're apologizing because they had a bad experience. 4th step is this. You tell them exactly the plan of action. You say, okay, you've listened to them the whole way through, you've repeated back, you apologize, and then you say, this is what we're going to do, so and so and so and so. And the 5th step's the most important. You actually do it. There's nothing worse than following the 4 steps, but then you don't do the 5th step and do it. It doesn't matter how good the 4 steps are, because you didn't actually do what you said you were going to do. And then the 6th step is you follow up with them a week or 2 later. So maybe somebody had a bad experience at church, like somebody was yelling at them for something, and then you talk to them about it and you say exactly what you're going to do. Can you imagine if you do that, you follow up with it, and then a week or 2 later you're like, Billy, like, how did that go? Like, I want you to know how I did. Is everything okay now? They're going to feel loved and cared about in a way that maybe had the complaint not even happened, they wouldn't have even felt that love and cared for. So again, a complaint is an opportunity to take the service even farther, the next level. Good with that? So what was the first step in a complaint? What do you do?
Listen.
All the way through. Second way? Repeat it back. Why?
So they know you would listen.
Third one? No matter what. 4th one? Tell them the plan. 5th one? Do it. 6th one? That was worth the price of admission right there, because I think in any world, using that has been so helpful for me. A professor told me, and it's something that I try to use all the time. Okay, we're at the halfway point. Everybody good? You want some more?
Yeah.
I love this one. Assume people are present for the first time, every time, and have a place for them to connect. Assume people are present for the first time, every time, and have a place for them to connect. And that's why that dedicated space for them to go, I think, is something you guys as a parish should at least look at. And you can do that in a variety of ways. You can staff that by volunteers. I know St. Jerome and Walbridge stagger their employees, so their employees don't all work during the week. One employee works on a Sunday, so they're doing the front desk as well. You guys can do it in a bunch of different ways, but I think it's really important. We shouldn't assume people are going to sign up. I think it's important that we have a place for them to go, to connect, and to take the next step. How would it change your experience here if you assume there was somebody present for the first time every time? Or let me say it this way. How many of you rarely assume that somebody is present for the first time every time? I'm that way. It changes how you see things, because all of a sudden you're thinking, it almost isn't about you anymore, it's about others, right? And there's something about that is just beautifully Catholic and evangelistic, and how the gospel was, and how Acts is, and like how the church exploded in those early days, right? Because nobody was Catholic then. Everybody was new, right? And they grew like wildfire, even as they were getting persecuted. So assume people are present for the first time, every time, and have a place for them to connect. Number 6. Train your eyes to see what is wrong with a room. Anytime I walk in a room and it's really ruined, like, me staying at hotels and restaurants. I look to see what's wrong with the room, and then I fix it before guests come in. And we should be doing, for example, how many people, if you walk and you see litter in the parking lot, how many would it take to pick up that litter? Like dozens maybe before somebody does. The idea would be we always look around us, and if there's something that's not right, or a sign's off, or there's litter on the ground, or one of the ropes is gone, or something isn't how it is, we're training our eyes to see what's wrong. But if we catch it before people are here, or before other people are here, it's fixed before they even notice the problem. But you've got to train your eyes to see a room that way, and not just to walk in. Because, so, the example I'll give you, at my last parish at St. Anne's, there was a sign that was ripped, I swear, for like 6 months. And nobody noticed it. You know why? Because they see it every day. But when you're a first-time guest anywhere, you notice everything. So we have to train our eyes to see things in that way. Because if you go somewhere over and over and over again, you lose sight of it. You lose sight of things that maybe need to be fixed, or things that could be, because you just see it all the time. You see it all. You've seen that weed every week, and so you just don't even notice it, right? So train your eyes to see what is wrong. That's what the word of the difference. Number 7. Make it easy for people to know their next step. You know, one of the issues in a lot of Catholic churches is we have 55 ministries per parish. And there's so many ministries per parish that people don't know what their next step is. They're overwhelmed by the options. So what do they do as a result of that? Nothing. And so one thing to look at is to say, okay, what is like the 1 or 2 ministries that are perfect for somebody that is just getting involved? And then what is the 1 or 2 ministries for somebody that has been involved for a while, but they're ready for like something a little bit deeper? Or what is the 1 or 2 ministries that would be to cultivate leadership for somebody that's been involved for 20 or 30 years? The idea would be, I think a lot of people in Catholic churches are stagnant. They've been in the same place for so long because there's no obvious next step. So something for us to start thinking about is, what are the next steps so people, wherever they're at on their faith journey, they know what their next step is and they keep going, they keep going. Did you notice what the mission statement was at North Point? To lead people in what was the term? Growing relationship with Jesus Christ. And we have way more tools than they do to grow that relationship with Jesus Christ. But as a result of having so many tools, people are overwhelmed and they don't do any of them. So I think it's really critical for those steps to know what your next step is and to make it simple to get plugged in. Catholic Church in Baltimore, when you first register at the parish, they have like 2 volunteer groups that they say, this is a good next step for you. They have like 50 ministries, but they say these 2, we'd say start there. And then it becomes really easy. So everybody knows what their next step is, and then they can go into some deep ones after that. You guys are probably part of a lot of different groups, and you can think, oh, that group would be great for a first, like somebody that's just getting involved, and then you might be like, that one might not be, right? Because it might involve some kind of depth or service that might just be difficult, right? And so the idea would be to have those in place to keep people growing.
Here's another thing is that by not doing this, you're never mentoring people to take over.
Right.
And so it's always a crisis when somebody leaves a ministry point.
But the reality is you should constantly be having people leave and constantly be having new leaders. And I would say the current leaders in place should be looking at the ones that are a little bit lower on the pipeline, not lower, but different on the pipeline, and getting them plugged in, right? So that's something that we can get in place. And it would almost make sense to create like a chart for the parish and like kind of see where everything's going and like, okay, these first, second, and third, and keep going from there. Absolutely. Number 8. Over-communicate the vision of hospitality with excitement. Do you know why you have to over-communicate it? Because people have full-time jobs, and they're thinking about other things. And so when it comes to hospitality, it's really important to understand this cannot be a one-time thing. This can't be a one-time training. This can't be a one-time event. This can't be a one emphasis that you do 1 year. This has to be communicated constantly. And the reason is because people are busy in other things. And as high energy as that video was that you saw, excitement was there, right? She was excited. They were excited. Is it kind of contagious? When I was a youth minister, our mission statement was to make disciples, to create irresistible environments to make disciples who make disciples. And I said it over and over and over again, almost every month at some large event. And why did I do that? Was it annoying for them? Did they constantly hear it? Yes. But they remembered it and they understood it. And we have to do the same thing with hospitality. It should be so obvious for the parish. Oh, Father's talking about hospitality again, but they get it because it's so important. So it's something we have to over-communicate with excitement, with joy. Create an experience that says this is a big deal. This one seems a little like what does that even mean? When you walked in, was it necessary that every single spot had a piece of paper here and every pen was angled at a certain degree with this little piece on the left-hand side and the water in the middle? Why did I do that? Is it because I have OCD and because I have a lot of time on my hands? Is that why I did that? Maybe, I could. Yeah, I could. It's very possible. But no, there's another. Why did I do that? Yeah, by doing something little like this, it says, oh, I'm going to a meeting that they thought about ahead of time. This matters. There's something about the food budget doesn't exist. I just asked Father if I could spend the money. I don't know where he got the money from. I'm probably not going to eat later this week, right? But he said yes because he knew by adding food, it said, there's something significant about this. When there's litter in the parking lot or the landscaping's not kept up or light bulbs are out, what does that say? They don't care. But when everything looks a certain way, or when scripts are worked out, or things are practiced ahead of time, doesn't it say this is a big deal, this matters? Isn't it interesting? We have very high standards when it comes to professional sports, and then when it comes to the church, you say, well, we're just trying. It's okay, just try as hard as you can. That is crazy. I love sports, by the way, but this matters in such a much more significant way. So if we talk about getting ready for it, we should be getting ready for this even more than those things, right? I mean, we're talking about eternal consequences here, and I love sports. They're games, right? And so let's create an experience that says, not entertainment, I'm not saying let's do entertainment, because that's fleeting, but an experience that says something significant is happening here. And the final know who your parishioners should be. Not the ones that are in the pews, but should be. I just did a little research before I came. 19.5% of BG residents are 25 to 44. 19.5%. 8.9% are 65 plus. I would ask you, do your pews reflect that demographic?
Would you repeat that?
Sure. 19.5% of BG residents are 25 to 45. 8.9% are 65 plus. That's the BG demographic listing. Do our pews reflect the same percentages? And BG's not unique in that, right? Does that mean that 8.9% aren't important? Absolutely not. They're amazing. That also means we have to understand that if we're skewed in some ways, like North Point was, we're going to have to emphasize certain demographics to get not one or the other, but to get a balance of the right demographics, because everybody's included. Everybody deserves the gospel message. Everybody deserves to know what we know here. So if there are people missing, we need to emphasize that group to make sure we're getting them. Know who your parishioners should be. So if you're spending higher amounts of resources on a certain demographic because they're not here, is that fair? Well, absolutely, because they're not here yet. We want everybody to be here. We want everybody to be here. And I want to I want to mentor the people below me so I'm out of a job someday, right? I want there to be people left after me. And I think we all want that, right? We want to retire or, hopefully go to heaven someday, and we want our church to be filled with people below us. We don't want it to end with us. We don't want it to end with us. So that means who our parishioners should be, we should want them in the pews, and we should design our hospitality principles with that in mind. So those are my top 10. Those are my top 10 hospitality principles. Questions? Comments? Yeah.
You might, if those are your statistics, you might find out from Bowling Green why those are the statistics.
Yeah.
Before I retired, I had a conversation with the individuals that were available for talking about our retirement plans. And the comment that I was given about retiring in Bowling Green was that most people leave because it's too expensive to live here.
That's interesting. Like
And that was so disheartening when you build relationships and you build your own base of knowledge to know where to go and what to do for certain kinds of things. And now they're making it so expensive that you can't live here no matter whether you try or, and if that's the case, then maybe there should be some involvement by the church to approach, the commissioners here about why is it becoming so expensive.
Sounds good to me. It's going to be above my pay range for this session, but I think that's a great idea.
But still,
that's great.
It's like I talked to a young man that I knew in school who wanted to develop nursing homes that had a daycare associated with it, so that the oldest people were involved with the youngest people and were mentoring them as well as being nourished by the youth, the excitement and the wonderfulness of little people around them. And to me, that whole concept made perfect sense.
I love that. Yeah, my best volunteer for high school youth ministry was my oldest volunteer, actually. She was amazing. And I think there's something about that mentorship that is so important. I love that. We only have about 10 minutes left. I know we're almost done, and I want to respect your time. So with my last few minutes, I want to give us a little bit of practice. I'm going to give you some hypotheticals, some things. What would you do if this happened? We're going to discuss it at your table, and then we're going to get some ideas going, okay? And then I'll talk about next steps after that. Mass has just ended, and you notice a man begging at the door of the church and asking for money. You can tell it is making parishioners uncomfortable, but you also know this man needs help. What would you do? Go. By the way, these are not hypothetical. These have all happened to me. So these are hypothetical. These have all happened to me. So part of me asking ideas is you might have better ideas than how I handle it. So I'll steal your ideas as well. What would you do? What would you do? Yeah.
I would invite them in to sit down. And then sit with them and say.
So they're not alone, right?
So they're not alone, and then say, what can I help you with the most? Are you hungry? And are you diabetic? Do you need something quick to eat? Whatever it might be, and being a girl and not wanting to put someone I don't know in my car, I might go to or walk them to Taco Bell or McDonald's, whatever, and bring something back. And if they say, I'm freezing cold, I don't know what to do, I would say, if you stay here, what's your size? If you stay here, I will come back with a coat. Whatever it is, you should be able to find it somewhere, even if it's in your house, an extra coat, an extra blanket, a sleeping bag, whatever it is that they might need. But the invitation to come in and sit across from them is acknowledging the fact that they are a valuable human being.
Dignity.
Yes, it's the dignity. That's the most important thing, I think.
And it helps in both ways, right? That would make people feel less uncomfortable, that maybe don't know what's going on because they're with somebody. But also, if somebody has a need, we'd help them. I mean, I know parishes that have stashes of non-cash gift cards and blankets and that kind of stuff. So if somebody's there, it's ready to go. It's ready to go. So I think that's great. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, let them know, there's a good boundary.
Yeah.
When it is.
Give them the hours. And yeah, that's a great idea. Because we have those ministries, but maybe they didn't know it. They come on a Sunday and they're like, yeah.
Well, it was brought up at our table that think ahead yourself, maybe be prepared with, say, a $10 gift certificate to a restaurant.
Right.
And then, so we were at least I was visualizing this after a mass on Sunday. Things are closed after a mass, and this person's outside. Pull them aside and give them that gift card, and then, set aside some food. And then tell them, we do have a food pantry, and the hours are on the door. I don't know what the hours are.
What if we had like a business card or something like
You
that?
think ahead of time, maybe have something yourself in your wallet.
Excellent.
Having the list of community resources on the kiosk.
Oh, that's a great idea.
Real helpful.
Or even a slip of paper, you can give that to them. Yeah, because the community, the best ones in the community, they don't have to be from us, right? Whoever's doing it best, let's partner with them. This one probably made me the most mad. I didn't handle it well. You'll see. A mom and her baby are sitting right in front of you. The baby has been crying throughout Mass, and a well-known parishioner next to you has just yelled at the mom saying, "Can't you control your kid?" You know the mom may never come back to church if this is handled poorly. What do? Discuss. Say what I did. What would you do?
I think you blame the kid. I think you jerk your keys, or you pull something out of your pocket, or you make things with them, and you try and help the kid. I have, at least one time, and it was rejected, and I understand why, but would your child, this is the day, this is over and over, would your child be willing to come out into the narthex? It was at a funeral, and I knew the family. I said, I'd be happy to take the child out here if that would help you. And
you didn't demand it.
I
You
didn't
just
demand
offered
it. I
it.
said, if you help, if that would help, I would be happy to do that. And, didn't take it, and didn't set it down, but it was, you have to be very careful about it. But I also, reading that, this well-known parishioner yells, "Can't you control your kid?" I want to yell, "Can't you control yourself?"
Kind of similar to what I did, but anyway, yeah. Okay, what else? What else?
I would say something to that mom that, you're doing God's work and kids don't always cooperate, and we don't all feel that way.
Yeah.
I love that actually. So I'm not even going to address the well-known parishioner because that doesn't deserve an address, but I'm going to address directly the person that was just yelled at. That's a great solution.
Well, and you know what I like up in our, I just look you guys up, we have the faith, hope, and love symbols up in there. You know what the love one is the mom with the 3 kids.
Yeah, okay.
And that is what we are supposed to do. I mean, we're supposed to have kids and bring them to church. And they're our future. So, say something to this mom, encourage her. I did tell one mom that had a lot of kids here once. I said, go look at what the love one is. I don't know if she ever did.
That's awesome.
I've heard priests affirm the moms from the pulpit.
Yeah.
In the middle of it, like, I love this competition and love this, that kind of thing, or, kind of joke about it. But
This is our future.
Yeah, oh yeah.
When I was in Huron one summer, they actually have like, at every pew, they have like a coloring sheet for them, and then on the top it says, we love the noise of your kids. They are welcome anytime. And so it's on every pew. I thought this is really awesome that they're like, they put it on every pew just to have it. Yeah.
Well, that's a reminder that it's a
Right. Right. Exactly.
And we don't have any signage that says here is a cry room.
Yeah. That's true.
Yeah.
You know, signage for people that are here, we're like, it's totally unnecessary. But imagine if you walk in here, would you know where the bathroom is? Remember, we got to see eyes from people that haven't been here before if we're going to design a church for everybody. So, something like that. Yeah. Okay, the final one. You begin talking to your neighbor one day, and religion comes up in the conversation. Your neighbor talks about wanting to find a church. How do you help your neighbor get plugged into your church? Discuss.
Personal level first.
And I think you invite them to come to something that you're involved in. The Wednesday morning women's Bible study. Come with me, we're going to go to Bible study. Or come with me, we're going to go to the fish fry. Come with me, we're going to go to something probably other than Mass for the first thing. I think Mass is not an entry. I think Mass is come to dinner and no, you can't eat. No. You know, that doesn't seem well. But there's other stuff going on. I'm going to help with the food pantry on Tuesdays. Come help. Come with me while I'm doing that. I think those are the kinds of things.
There's a term that some places use called invested invite. So invested people, and then invite them to come with you. I know people that did invite them to church. She's right. It might be confusing for the first time. So he's like, you can come with me, and then afterwards we'll go to breakfast, and I'll explain all the crazy things we do. And they were like, oh, great! Like it was like a great kind of 1-2 punch, right? So come with me, I think, is like, yeah, I love that. What else?
I've heard people say to other people that you make a big Catholic.
I love that. You remind me of a Catholic. Yeah. Like, I know friends that like, yeah, they maybe had like 2 or 3 beers that night. They're like, be a great Catholic. You drink one, right? And so they're like, oh, you know, like it's a compliment. So yeah.
I know one
The stereotype, right?
I know one deacon that'll say, you know, the Catholic Church still has a few spots left if you're interested.
I love that, yeah. It's very non-confrontational, right? And it's joking, but it's also saying like, no, we really come with us, yeah. I want to give you guys a few next steps, speaking of this, before we close with prayer. One next step is, the fair is coming up, and that is a great opportunity to put some of these principles in practice. With COVID, it is challenging, but it's doable. And so there is a sign-up sheet by the sandwiches. You can get a sandwich to go and sign up. You're not signing up to work the fair, you're just signing up for more information. So we'll plug you in for more information. That's one next step. The other next step is I created a evangelization sheet that might be helpful when you're talking to people about it. On the front, it just lists some techniques to talk about your faith. And then on the back are the top 5 questions people ask Catholics with succinct answers to them. So hopefully you find those helpful. Take one of those sheets as you leave. And then I guess my final point would be this. If the group in this room, just the group in this room, took charge of these principles and shared them with other parishioners, would the number of people in this room be enough to make a significant impact in the parish?
Yeah, absolutely.
You guys have what it takes to create a complete culture shift on what a typical Catholic parish is by doing some of these things. It doesn't take a lot of people, it just takes a few people. And so I just want you to know there is great hope. You guys have what it takes to do it. And that to me is so exciting that it can be done. And I've only been here a few weeks, but from what I know about you guys are more than equipped to do it. You're more than equipped to do it. And so I'm excited to see it happen. I'm excited to come back months from now just to see you guys run with it. It's going to be awesome. So I'll close in prayer, and then after that, I'll be available just if you have any questions or anything like that. Remember, grab 1 to 2 sandwiches to go, and Father Tom has a comment as well.
Thank you, Chris. Just one thing I wanted to ask. 10 points and the 6 complaint points, don't you think they'd be easier for us to remember if you had an acronym for them?
I was waiting for you to create one. Nobody better at creating acronyms than Father Tom. I saw this prayer, a parish used this prayer to launch a lot of their hospitality principles, so I thought I'd read it for you guys as a way for us to close this evening. So in the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit, amen. Almighty God, my parish is composed of people like me. I help make it what it is. It will be friendly if I am. It will be holy if I am. Its pews will be filled if I help fill them. It will do great work if I work. It will be prayerful if I pray. It will be generous. It will make generous gifts to many causes if I am a generous giver. It will bring other people into its worship if I invite and bring them. It will be a parish family of loyalty and love, of fearlessness and faith, of compassion, charity, and mercy, if I, who make it what it is, am filled with these same qualities. Therefore, with the help of God, I will dedicate myself to the task of being all the things that I want my parish to be. Bless my journey, Lord God, that I might build the church through Jesus Christ our Lord.
Amen.
Thank you guys so much. You're awesome.
Thank you.